Hey everyone, today we're talking about the greatest and the least. From there, Jesus and his followers went through Galilee, but he didn't want anyone to know it. It's because he was teaching his disciples, the Son of Man will be delivered into human hands. They will kill him, and 3 days after he's killed, he'll rise up. They didn't understand this kind of talk, and they were afraid to ask him. They entered Capernaum. When they come to a house, he asked them, "What are you arguing about during the journey?" They didn't respond because on the way they'd been debating with each other about who was the greatest. So he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be least of all, and the servant of all." Jesus reached for a little child, placed him among the 12, and embraced him. He said, "Whoever welcomes one of these children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me isn't actually welcoming me, but the one who sent me." So we talk a lot these days about who's the greatest of all time, or the GOAT, right? Is it LeBron or Jordan, MJ or Kanye, the Beatles or the Stones? So how do you become the GOAT, the greatest, right? I just watched the Kanye documentary on Netflix, so I've been doing my research. Well, you have to work hard, right? You got to hustle. You got to put yourself out there, right? You have to have some talent, but you also have to make sure everybody knows how talented you are to be the greatest. You got to have connections, right? Do some networking with powerful people so they can help you get further up the ladder, right? You're not going to waste time with people who can't do anything for you. That's not what Jesus wants. Jesus doesn't want us to be the greatest of all time, the GOAT. He wants us to be the LOAT, the least of all time. So instead, if we're following Jesus' way, we don't draw attention to how great we are, to what we can do. We don't try to raise ourselves up, right? If it happens because of how God's gifted you, that's great. But if not, that's okay too. The example Jesus uses here is a little child. Now, in the first century, they had kind of a different view of children. They didn't build their lives around their kids the way that we often do today. They thought they were barely a person until they could actually contribute. A child had no status. And I think that's what Jesus is highlighting here. What do you do for the people that can't do anything for you, can't help you get ahead, right? Goats don't care because they can't get them anywhere, right? They're only going to do charity if it's on camera. But if you're trying to be a LOAT, the unimportant is where you focus the most. Is Christ-like humility really a virtue today? You know, when we think about humility, it's not just thinking less of yourself, it's thinking more of others. Again, Jesus is our example. Jesus didn't think that he was worthless. That's not what made him humble. He was confident in his worth. He knew he was beloved by God. And so, he was free to move down the ladder to the least of these. He's the greatest because he was the least. So, which are you going to try and be?